Lifting family, welcome back. So this is going to be another movie review, and in this movie review we are going to be talking about Generation Iron 3. So this one has been out for a little bit, and for those that subscribe to Netflix, chances are you've seen this for your Netflix subscription fee, but this one I wasn't really sure about doing a movie review on, but there seemed to be a decent bit of interest in terms of the West Side versus the World review that I had done, so trying to capitalize on that a little bit, going into another movie review that is related to the fitness industry, which is Generation Iron 3, which several years ago the launch of Generation Iron was kind of like a revitalization, and it felt like just a little bit more energy into the fitness industry, and something that was kind of like a long time coming. I mean, especially since Pumping Iron, there just was not a movie that really seemed to kind of bring the community together to where people were looking forward to that, and that was in theaters. So that was something that was a big deal, and I really enjoyed that. And just that opening song was definitely something that just really it was a nice touch, and it was a nice beat, and I think about that movie and what it started. Then came along Generation Iron 2, which wasn't too bad, but it definitely didn't, to me, reach the level of what Generation Iron was, and so it didn't really, like most sequels, they weren't really able to capture exactly that momentum that happened from the first one. And then now in Generation Iron 3, so the movie kind of starts off basically just explaining that there's not really going to be a lot of focus. That's kind of what I took away from how this movie opened up, was basically just kind of what the landscape of bodybuilding is, and how it's trying to reach a broader audience and going internationally. And so that's something that does have some interest, and they do show that a little bit, but at the same time this kind of seems to be a couple movies meshed together. It seems to kind of be the hot topic of the NPC physique, and then the entrance and the oncoming classic physique category as well. So that's something that those could almost be two separate 15 or 20 minute decent like short films that Generation Iron could have done, but they put that in here. There's a little bit on the female side of the fitness industry in the film, and then there's the international aspect that is brought into the film as well, but all in different parts and different pieces, and you get to see an international bodybuilder, and he's actually been the focus of some images and some, not necessarily some memes, but just if you were going to complain about training, then look at what this guy is basically just, he's making something out of nothing. He's basically just putting together a gym from old parts of different things, and that's his gym, and he's basically making a go of the limited resources that are available to him and his community, but he's still making it. And I thought that could be an amazing film in and of itself. I don't know if you'd be able to go to an hour and a half long, but I don't know that you need to either, because there's a lot there with the culture and the development, and that's something that, again, it's part of the movie, and there's part of this movie that has the elements of a great film, but maybe there's not necessarily like a lead role, and that's just because it kind of jumps all over the place. I mean, you've got Vlad that is narrating the movie as he normally does, but there's no lead role, there's no lead drama that really seemed to be the front runner and the big conversation with the first Generation Iron, and then a little bit of that was in the second one, and now this one is just kind of like, we need to put together a movie, and we've got some interesting ideas, so let's just see if we can cut all these clips together and basically kind of have it as like chapters, but chapters almost from different books, but they're still around the same concept. I was not really a fan of it, and I felt like if this film were to be redone, I would focus on the content of the African bodybuilding community, and then the guy by the name of Collins that was in the film. I think that's really focusing on that development, and maybe even helping out a little bit offering that guy some resources and some different things that would really help build that community, because that's kind of a story that has a little bit of the ability to be a little bit more sensational, and a little bit something where we can see where Collins came from, and then not necessarily that he needs to be given things, because there's a certain level of ownership that can be taken from things that are earned. And I think that's a lot of what bodybuilders enjoy, and people in the fitness industry enjoy, is that their body is something that is earned, and through different means. That's outside of the scope of this, but just in terms of watching your body grow or shape into whatever you want it to be, I think that there's a level of something that's earned there. Again, however you get there, different discussion, but what is earned is the big piece. So not necessarily that Collins needs to be given stuff, but in the same sense, just helping out with certain resources. And I'm not trying to think through that as I go into this review, but that's something that I think really could have been a great movie, but it seemed like something where they were just trying to put together a movie and had a complete miss here. So I'm hoping that with some of the other films that Generation Iron has focused on, I'm hoping that those are a little bit better. But in terms of like a Generation Iron 4, unfortunately, it seems like that is something that is going to need some new blood, just because there's not necessarily a rivalry going on right now. There's a lot of like a fallout in terms of what the IFBB is going to do, since you've got issues with Big Ramy competing and then not competing, and then now it sounds like he's competing again based on Nick Strength and Powers channel and some of the updates that he's got. And then you've got Phil that may or may not be competing based on some sort of a mini 8-week challenge that he's going to do for himself to see where he's at. There's not that rivalry story. There's also not someone that's just coming out of the woodwork, and maybe we'll see that. Maybe there's a story that's developing right now where there's someone that's just going to come out of the woodwork and really shine at this year's Olympia, but I don't know what that will be. And that story developing into a movie would be very hard to then release it right after the Olympia, so that you'd still be able to capitalize on all of that momentum. But overall, this one, I don't really want to give it a star rating. I just think that if you have the chance to watch it, I would watch something else. I think I'd watch West Side versus the World. I thought that one was very interesting. That was fun to watch throughout the entire show. But I think that with Generation Iron 3, I think it could be one of those shows that would, unfortunately for Collins, that would be something that would be easily overlooked. But hopefully Generation Iron does something as the film producer, does something a little bit different if they are to do a Generation Iron 4. But again, overall, just like I'm trying to think of something because I'm trying not to sound too harsh, but just not as expected.